What's up, everyone? Kevin Allen here, aka the Geek from DFS Army, and this is our NFL Week 7 Weekend Review.
Got the best coaches in the game, we really ain't playing. We regroup up in the Slack chat where the coaches debrief. We be piecing these puzzles, occupy the chunk of the pie. Ain't no lie when we hit the block, helmets, casket, and top. You be seeing helmet after helmet, helmet after helmet. First place, second place, fifth place, eighth place, 12th place, 15, 16, 20. So many helmets, you got blurred vision, we got...
All right, what's up, guys? We are back with another NFL Weekend Review, and as you know, and as I say every time, it's really, really important every single week, NFL DFS, every kind of DFS, that you look back, see what happened in the previous week, look at your content, look at your tools, make sure that your process was good, your process was solid, and move on and improve week after week after week. So that's what we do here with the Weekend Review. And NFL Week 7 was really interesting. In the Millie Maker on Draftkings, it was the return to QB +2, bring back one, right? So we've had a really interesting year where, for example, game stacking has not really necessarily been working that well. Team stacking a little better, and not giant stacks, smaller stacks, and all of that kind of thing. So it's really interesting kind of to see how all of this stuff comes together. But of course, that's what we do every single week. So we're going to take a look at the Millie Maker winner. We're going to take a look at some of the lineups I put together. We're going to take a look at what worked in cash. So let's start on the cash game side. And guys, I'm focusing exclusively on DraftKings this week because between you and me, I didn't play any Fanduel. I wouldn't have a chance. I only play DraftKings. So that's where my data came from. And I want to take a look specifically at DraftKings. And this was a week 6, where the running back position was a fucking nightmare. Very, very difficult. And it really sunk a lot of lineups this week from the top down. I mean, it stunk from the top down. And we can take a look at the chalkboard here. I wanted to open it up just to show what a disaster it was. And interestingly, what I would call a miss on our ownership projection on Swift really wound up being predictive. So I want to talk about that as well, because we take a look at the ownerships. But just looking at the chalkboard, this is the DFS Army tool that just shows ownership projected exposures across all of the different position groups. And it helps us essentially craft our cash game lineups, because chalk is good in cash, right? So if we take a look at the chalkboard, we're going to see some interesting, interesting things. And we're going to see some interesting, ownerships that should have gotten us on players, maybe, or maybe they shouldn't have, or maybe we did get on them, maybe we didn't get on them, whatever. So we'll go through it here. And as you could see at the quarterback position, the chalkboard did kind of tell the tale of the good quarterbacks this week. As you can see, Mahomes was a dud. There's no doubt about it. But I'll go back to Mahomes in that matchup every single time. There's no way of ever predicting that Mahomes is all of a sudden going to be terrible at football. That was a weird one-game anomaly, if you ask me. He was the best play. Didn't work. But right behind him here, Jalen Hurts actually smashed this week. Lamar Jackson was great. Matthew Stafford, nuts. So your 3 of the top 4 quarterbacks on the list really smashed. Tua was another one that I think we may discover, was part of some of the better lineups this week. So really, really interesting chalkboard approach here at the quarterback position. At running back, the majority of the field played Darrell Henderson, Derrick Henry, and either Fournette or Williams as your trio of cash game running backs. I wish I could have a graphic pop up on screen for this. Fail, 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 fail. So many fails. Finally, Damian Harris was not a fail. As far as I could tell, there were only 2 running backs that were good this week, and that was Swift and Damian Harris. Snacks. We got on Damian Harris really, really late in the game when the word came out that Ramondre Stevenson was not active. but it was so late that it wasn't reflected in ownerships. It wasn't reflected in ownerships of tournament ownerships of the player. Because that news came out, 11:30, and it wasn't like headline slamming news. It was more like part of the reason we probably weren't on Damian Harris was just because, he was splitting with Ramondre, and you got Bolden working in, and it's just, it's been all right. He doesn't get passing game work. But the minute Ramondre wasn't in the game, it was like, oh shit. It was like, oh shit, we need to play some Ramondre. I added Damian Harris to my MME on the flea flicker at like 12:30. I was just like, let me jack up my exposure to 15%, which helped, but it wasn't enough. So I'm going to show you a little bit of my results for the week as well, but I just wanted to go over the cash game stuff. So if we take a look at, let's see here, flea flicker, here we go. The giant double up. Let's see what it took to cash in this thing. And I've got Echo of Gam. Obviously, I did not cash. My cash line, I actually didn't put in the cash line. It was just, these were tournament lineups that I threw in here actually, this was my cash lineup, and it did not cash. So I'll show you what I did. I like Jalen Hurts at quarterback. That actually was fine. I played Williams, Henderson. Actually, no, this isn't even a cash. This is just a lineup I randomly threw in here. So I'm not even going to look at that. I would have had Henry in my cash, but I actually didn't focus on cash. I focused on tournaments personally, so whatever. I'm going to look at a couple lineups that did make it, and then we'll see what they did and see why it worked and why it didn't. So it's really interesting that I'm seeing a lot of the guys up top who scored really well. It's hard to use a contest like this because we're not able to see. The cash line here was 6,800, and I can only see these guys who finished kind of further up. But I will say one thing. These are the highest finishers in it. McLovin, who's a very good player. No Henry, no Derrick Henry. So, yeah, I mean, really weird. 87% Darrell Henderson. Cooper Kupp 60%. Cooper Kupp is who you needed. Rashad Bateman was the pay down chalk. Godwin was somebody that was necessary. Cardinals defense. So a lot of this stuff, by the way, it's bared out on the chalkboard, right? Defense, Cardinals. Wide receiver. Yeah, I'm a little surprised here. Wide receiver, Godwin is right up there, but you've got some of these other names. Sterling Shepard was still popping because he was only ruled out very late. Cooper Kupp up here, 18%. So it was Bateman, Kupp, and Godwin. That was really the trio that you wanted in cash games. Tricky one. And at running back, it seems like the move was, as long as you didn't use one in your flex and use somebody else, you probably did a little bit better. There was also late news this week about Foster Moreau, about Darrell, about Waller not playing at tight end for the Raiders. And so Foster Moreau became this incredible option that most people didn't necessarily know for sure about early. We knew that Waller might not play, and we talked about Foster Moreau, but man, did that guy smash. And actually, the Foster Moreau thing brings up another concept that I'm just going to look at this question here, where you or miss out on cash when Mahomes is your QB, and literally everybody on your team goes off at 1. The same thing happens again at 4, and I was awful yesterday. So I don't know what that means, but listen, it was rough. If you had Mahomes in your lineup early, you needed to swap out because obviously that dud was going to destroy. So you had to get off some chalk in the afternoon games, and that was where Foster Moreau came into play. So that's what I wanted to talk about a little bit, was just like Foster Moreau. Wait, I'm on the wrong screen. How Foster Moreau late created an opportunity in your cash lineup where if you hadn't been doing well, and I played Gesicki or heavily, he would have been my cash guy, but where had he been failing, this person probably swapped in Moreau. And you're getting off of chalk. He was only 22% owned, and it allows you to pay up somewhere else. Maybe this move allowed him to move to Cooper Cup versus some other combination that was there. So if your cash lineup is failing early, it's really, really important that you make swaps to it, get off the chalk for the late game if you have enough players left that haven't played yet, so that you can deal with potentially getting off some chalk and finding your way into the cash line and cash games. It is doable. It's possible to pull that off. So I just want to talk a little bit about the cash games there. A couple things on my own game here. So personally, flea flicker, baby. Tiers. Played a little bit of tiers this week. Worked out pretty decent. And this lineup, I had a couple of nice lineups, really high finishes. I'd encourage everybody to play tiers every week because it's really a very different format from standard classic lineup construction. And the cool thing about tiers is you could really employ game theory in a very, very clear way where you can, especially with DFS Army, guys, we have ownerships for tiers. And the ultimate way to win tournaments is leverage against ownership. So in tiers, once you're ready, like for me, once I knew McLaurin was going to be only 3% owned, I was like, hey, let me go well over the field. I can go 15% on him and get a lot of leverage on the field. So you're able to look at these ownerships and understand that, all right, if I just get off of this guy and get on somebody else. I played a lot of Pat Mahomes as my primary quarterback, and obviously that didn't work in this one, but not all, because he was going to be massively owned. So you've got to leverage ownership against the field as much as possible. So a couple little tricks I used here. So some of the tricks I used, for example, and this is why maybe this lineup didn't necessarily win, but it finished really well, was like, I had a rule, Lamar Jackson. If Lamar Jackson is in my lineup, I'm going to use one of Brown or Andrews. You can team and game stack in tiers. Not a lot of people understand that, but you can team stack, game stack. So like I could have had a rule, if Stafford is in my lineup, I did have a rule, I need to use one of Kupp, Woods, and then I bring it back with maybe Swift if I wanted to. I don't think I did that. But if I wanted a game stack, I could do that. So just make sure that your quarterback is kind of paired up with at least one, sometimes two players from the game. So there are really cool ways that you can use the Domination Station Optimizer to set up those game stacks. Actually, Big Marley in our tiers breakdown talks about a lot of that stuff. So I employed it this week. I don't always play tiers. I haven't really played it. I played it once so far this year. This was my second time playing it. And I'm definitely going to keep doing it because what I like about it is it allows me to sort of have like, it's almost a hedge against your other lineups, which is cool. Now, one miss for me, when I went in and increased my exposure of Damian Harris in my main set of lineups, in my classic, I forgot to go and do it with the tiers also. So could have maybe had a better result had I gotten a little more Harris in there, but maybe not. I don't know if it would have made a world of difference, but maybe. The only reason this one kind of was out of the money, it wasn't, this lineup is actually pretty perfect, but no rugs. So anyway, came pretty close in tiers, made a little bit of money. That was nice. Now, really interesting, I mentioned at the onset, let's go to the flea. I want to show Megan Joy's lineup here. So I did not do well in my MME Classic mode. As you can see here, $200 winnings, 750 entries. So this was a pretty big loser for me. I'll show you my best lineup here. It was a 190. Joe Burrow, again, Fournette, Henry, so much fail. I had a lot of Giants defense, which was great. This lineup, I didn't do, let's see here, Baltimore. Did I do a game stack? I think I might have manually changed this one at one point because it was doing well, and I put in Foster Moreau, and then I'm sure I switched something, maybe Smith. Oh yeah, I think this lineup maybe had two tight ends, and I put in Moreau, and I swapped up to Smith, which wasn't good enough. But this was a late swap lineup for me, which I'm pretty happy that I did because it did help it, but not enough. But overall, too much Derrick Henry for me. Pretty much doomed me in this slate. Baltimore, I'm trying to see if I did a bring back. Nope, no bring backs. So I did a little bit more QB +1 because that's what's been working. And you're going to see here as we analyze the Millie Maker winner, of course, as we shift over to one thing, something else starts to work. And you'll see a QB +2 bring back of 1 that took the whole thing down. So this was my best lineup anyway. But I wanted to show Megan Joy and her winning lineup in the flea. And it's interesting because Megan Joy also, and we're going to analyze all of her stuff here in a minute. So her, him, I don't know. But we're going to analyze all of their stuff here in a minute. Yeah, a lot of us got burned on Miles Sanders. Listen, I want to talk about process. You want to talk about Miles Sanders? Great. Playing him was the right move. The guy was getting heavy usage in the first fucking, like everything we were hoping for about Miles Sanders was playing out in that game, even in the first drive. So playing him heavy worked out. It's just, listen, in-game injury, what are you going to do? What are you going to do? In-game injury. Can't do anything about it. But everything we expected for Miles Sanders was happening in that first drive. He scored 4 fantasy points in like one drive in that game. So imagine he was in a couple other drives. Definitely was going to have a big day. But in-game injuries happen. We were right in process there, but shit just happens, man. Injuries happen. Don't change anything based on that. That's really important. So anyway, looking at Megan Joy, here we have her takedown of the flea, 50K winner. And we're going to see Megan Joy has a lot of money after this weekend. We're going to go to the Millie Maker in a minute. And I'm fascinated that it's a different lineup than this that won the Millie Maker. That's fascinating to me. And I don't fucking know how that's even possible. But here we go. I don't know what's different about it. What's different about it? I don't know. This one scored 237. The Millie Maker scored 239. We're going to have to figure out what the change is because they look exactly the same. I don't know what's different. Godwin, McLaurin, Cup, Harris. Tampa defense. Changed up the defense. Man, fucking sick. Bucks versus Tampa. Jefferson, Moreau, Harris, Swift. Why is it saying 237? This says 239. All right. I don't know. Maybe there's a... Yeah, are you guys seeing that? It says 237 and 239? Am I tripping? Oh, Labs has it wrong. Okay, there you go. Okay, good. Because I'm like, 2 different lineups. They look exactly the same. All right, so that changes it. I don't even need to look at that one. Let's take a look at it from here because I was like, wow, a different lineup. That's crazy. You didn't need Titans defense. Giants defense was great. We played a ton of Giants defense that really worked out. Swift. So let's take a look at this lineup. What won the tournament? Now, Megan Joy entered 150 lineups to this contest, and she hit the million. This is the first time in a while that a 150 entry person actually won the Millie Maker. For weeks and weeks, it's been 1 off or 2 off people. So we went back to the 150 entry person, and let's take a look at this lineup and just understand what's going on. We got a game stack. We got 2 separate team stacks and 2 separate team stacks. So let's look for what's going on here. So her lineup started, I don't know, their lineup. Sorry, whoever you are. Their lineup started with, and we're going to look at all their exposures as well, but it's a Matthew Stafford, Van Jefferson, Cooper Kupp, QB +2 stack with the bring back on Swift, who is from the Lions, right? So QB +2, bring back of 1. That, that's the classic stack type that we've been doing a lot of over the last couple of years that had worked and worked and worked until it really hasn't worked much this year. But here we are, Millie Maker winner, classic stack. We got chalk Chris Godwin here, a low-owned defense, but a very obvious one, Tampa. I don't even think the defense was the difference maker in this win, but nonetheless, it was good. You had to spend up for it. Low-owned Foster Moreau. And I'm wondering, I wish I could interview Megan Joy to know if this was a move playing Foster Moreau. I'm going to take a look at the total exposure. We'll figure it out. So, but we'll figure this out. But did they simply anticipate that Waller being questionable, not going to play, I'll just play some Moreau? Or was this a late swap? I'm curious about that part of it because a lot of the players in this game are from the afternoon. So this could have been a late swap situation. Maybe they had some extra money. They swapped up to Tampa defense from some other defense in the afternoon. I don't know. So That's really, really interesting for me. Where's the second game stack? I want to find it. Technically, I want to find that one. So Washington, Patriots. I don't see the second team stack in there. So I don't know if I'm missing something. Chicago, Tampa. Is there a Tampa player in here? Oh, Godwin. Okay. Godwin, Tampa defense. They're calling that a second team stack, if you want to call it that. I don't really consider that a stack at all. So let's take a look at Megan Joy's exposures and see what they did to pull off this incredible lineup. And the first thing I want to look for actually is at the tight end position. Foster Moreau, 8.7%. This doesn't, so interesting. Here we go. Tight end, what they did was just spread exposures out very liberally across a lot of different players. And I want to look at a few of their lineups, just to kind of see how that played out. But based on the total exposure, 16, 30, 40, 50, they probably did not allow tight end in the flex. And this was just, a well spread out tight end position. Let's take a look at some of the other position groups here. So what they did do was load up on 2 players. Wow. They loaded up on 2 players at wide receiver and then just spread the rest of the exposures out. Kupp and Godwin, who were both in the nuts. So if you ever want to know how you take down a tournament, if you figure out 2 wide receivers that are going to be in the nuts and you load up on them, that's really, really helpful. Running back. So here's another move that they did. Loaded up on Damian Harris, stayed away from a lot of the chalk, loaded up on DeAndre Swift. So, I mean, this is what it takes to take down the million. You want to take down the million? Go over 50% on low, in this case, a low-owned player that was in the nuts. And go massively leverage to the field. Now, really interesting, DeAndre Swift all the way down to 6% ownership. That didn't work. And DeAndre Swift was in the nuts. The rest of these running backs failed, but it didn't matter. Michael Carter was okay. Miles Sanders, they were low on them, below market, well below the field on Derrick Henry. So this is a sharp player, and they made a choice to go massively below the field on the chalkiest running back on the slate, and it worked out. It worked out. Really good job. Let's take a look at quarterback position. Loaded up on Stafford, loaded up on Goff, so they really liked this game. Fields, so I feel justified. Sharp player played Fields just like I did. Didn't work. Darnold stayed away from, looks like stayed away from the higher owned guys. Where's Mahomes? Mahomes is not even on the list. Look at that. No Mahomes. Said, I'm not playing him. Basically avoided the chalkiest game on the entire slate. Really mostly turtly quarterbacks here. Even Zach Wilson's in the mix. Even, this is a really interesting approach to it's a really interesting approach to MMEing, but I think the big takeaway is lots of leverage on the field on good spot players. Like Harris was in a good spot, of course. Just got a ton of leverage on the field based on the late news. DeAndre Swift, I don't really even think was a good spot. I really think that was just more of, hey, they decided to load up on that one game. I guess the revenge narrative. Something like that. Yeah, I think it was pretty obvious that it was going to be either Swift or Hawkinson. And, Swift was popping on the Dom station. If you didn't adjust anything, you got 30, 35, 40% Swift in your lineups. I purposefully reduced him, but he was popping like crazy in our projection model as well. And, wasn't popping. Derrick Henry wasn't really popping because he's so expensive. So that's just how it went. So we were doing a lot of adjusting, but, I kind of wonder if on a back test, we could reproduce a lineup like this. Want to try it? Try a little back test? It's a lot to do on this show. It's a lot to do on this. I will do a little bit of back testing here. I'll do a little bit of back testing shortly. I want to kind of see how to reproduce it. But let's take a look again, as we always like to do, really important, at all the mass multi-entry people. This is the Millie Maker. So this was going to probably be a rough week for a lot of people. So what I've done is I've sorted it by people who've ran 150 lineups. We had a couple other names. Ricky D is a pretty well-known player. Let's see what Ricky D did here. And again, loaded up on Damian Harris. Got a lot of exposure to him. QB, Taylor Heineke. Man, that didn't work. Could have worked. Almost worked. Didn't work. Low owned. Lots of leverage there. Aaron Rodgers. So Ricky D focused on this game. Let's see what happened at wide receiver. Yeah, loaded up on Devontae Adams, which was a killer move. Not enough Cooper Kupp. Way too much Devontae Adams. It's pretty impressive to come out with a profit considering kind of this distribution. Lots and lots of Terry McLaurin leverage, which I liked as well. Plenty of Godwin, which we all liked. Super chalky. Ricky Seals-Jones, disaster. Foster Moreau added into the mix, so well done there. And a widespread defense. But one of the things we always like to go over on the weekend review is, of course, how many people made money versus losing money. So there are 100 names on this list, 0 to 100. We've got 3 profitable, 4, 5, 6, 7. So out of 100, 93% lose money rate, guys. I always remind you of this because I think that people tend to forget or not understand that when you mass multi-enter, you're expected to lose. I showed you my flea flicker mass entry. I lost money. I'm embarrassed about it. I lose money 90% of these. I'm down. So I lose money 90%. It's those wins that make up for it. I had a win this weekend on the Thursday night showdown, which was nice. And that made up for, all the times I lost money so far this season and then some. So that took me up, like taking down a showdown. That's how it works. If you're going to play tournaments, you're going to lose and lose and lose and lose and lose most of the time. And then you get a win and it makes it all back. It's a very volatile way. And I think that for people who don't like that level of volatility, I continue to stress that you should be focused on small tournaments, 30-man, 50-man, 100-person, 150-person. The smaller tournaments are where you need to really grind out most of your money in DFS if you want to do this longer term. And then with these wins will come once in a while, and all of a sudden you're Megan Joy, a millionaire. That's how it happens. So again, going back to this, just 97% lose money rate. Let's take a look at the second row. There's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14. So this is less than 150. So maybe 90%. Again, a 10% not lose money rate in mass multi-entering this week. Pretty much the same as we've seen every week of the season. So a reminder, when you mass multi-enter and you enter 150 lineups, that you're not better than these people. Trust me. These are some of the best players in the world. If you're people who are entering 150 have made enough money in the Millie Maker, have made enough money to blow that kind of money. There's Osimo, there's Under Jones. These are some of the best players. These guys, there's Brick 75. I like to see what he does. These are some of the best players. And they lose money 90% of the time. We check in every single week. So you don't feel bad about yourself if you're doing this. We did have a DFS Army, couple DFS Army subscribers actually crushed the mini max, take it down. And I do have to say, a win on the mini max, just as good as a Millie Maker win, except for the dollar amount is a little bit smaller, but it's just as good. So let's take a look at what Brick 75 did. He's very big into leveraging ownership. He's a big ownership leverage guy. Played a lot of Stafford, which looks pretty good. Lamar Jackson, Daniel Jones, Pat Mahomes, fine. Jalen Hurts, a little bit of Tua. Had a little exposure to just about every quarterback, which is interesting. At running back, decided to leverage Darrell Henderson, Fournette, Chuba Hubbard, Darrell Williams, Henry, Booker, Sanders, Connor. The first, not terrible running back is all the way down here. Swift and Harris, way too low to ever have them paired up in a lineup together or to, cause yourself not to lose a lot of money there. again, Brick is definitely a leverage guy, and you can see here, not a go 100% all in on a player guy, clearly. His highest exposure was Cooper Kupp. Went on to Dante Pettis, a little scary move. What was the winning player pool? The winning player, I can't jump back to that. If you go back, we'll take a look at Megan the Stallion again at the end. Not Megan, Megan, not Megan the Stallion, just Megan Joy. Is there the Stallion? Is that Megan? Is that a rap artist or something? All right, Chris Godwin, not enough. Waddle. I was loaded up on Godwin, but I definitely favored Devontae Adams over Cooper Kupp, and of course that sucked. Had plenty of Rashad Bateman. I just like to see what the various players do if you start to learn. So again, if you look at Brick 75, he's not one to really, really load up too heavily on any position. And the highest exposure was Cooper Kupp at the high end. And Cooper Kupp probably saved his, Megan the Stallion. I knew that was a thing. Megan Joy. And I'm like, Megan the Stallion. Like, I knew that shit was real. Megan Joy kind of is the Stallion, though. I think we can agree now that she got the million. He, she, they have the million, that they are the Stallion. So I saw Osimo over here. Let's take a look at him and what he's up to. And again, loaded up on Cooper Kupp, but the highest exposure he was willing to go is about 50%. Definitely got a lot of exposure to him and Kupp and Adams, which is interesting for me. Let's look through the whole thing. I like to look at some of the lineups, but let's look at the exposures first, and then I want to see if I can figure out what kind of stacking Osimo was using. But here we go. Kept it tight on the player pool around the running back position. Fournette, Mike Davis. This is just like pure believing projections. No, I don't like Mike Davis. There's Swift, Patterson, Harris. So this wasn't going to be a winning approach, and obviously it didn't work out very well. You know, on that note, this is an interesting thing to say here. So I've often wondered myself how one person can mass multi-enter so many things in so many different sports, and how you can be involved in NBA and NFL and all simultaneous. It's really hard for me personally to do it. So I wonder, how is it even possible that any person can like mass multi-enter on multiple sites, multiple sports across like fucking League of Legends and NBA and MLB and everything that's going on? And I did see an answer, and I believe I know. I've spoken to some people, and I've sort of gone through this a little bit. She won one last day. Do you know if it's a she, a he? Do we know? But I've often wondered about it. And in the end, I've asked these questions. And the answer is, if you find, this is why backtesting is so important. Backtesting and using the backtest tool is the most powerful thing that we possibly have in our arsenal. Okay, sorry about that, popped up on the screen. But it's the most powerful thing we have on our arsenal. To develop a repeatable system that you can do again and again without as much time and effort. So once you've developed a repeatable system, then you can play a lot of different sports, and you need a math-based repeatable system. How many, you're going to trust ownership, but how are you going to leverage ownership? How are you going to leverage projections? How many uniques do you use? What type of stacks do you create in NFL? In NBA, there are stacks that people are using now. How do you do that? How much max exposure do you allow for any player? What do you leverage that against? And if you're not back testing and testing methods that you can repeat over the course of long periods of time and being deliberate about it, you're never going to be incredibly successful as an MME player. So I don't know how to, when I say back test, the Domination Station Optimizer allows you to pull up last week's slate, last year's slates. Every slate is in there archived with the final points in there. Slate by slate, every single week. What I do at the end is I go back, and I'll do this after this video. I go back and I re-optimize the slate. I'm like, hey, without cheating. Cheating is, hey, I already know what happened. Let me jack up Cooper Kupp to 100%. Let me jack up, Swift and Harris to crazy levels, can cheat. but rather look for repeatable processes that you can do every week that lead to wins. I did my process, my back testing, and with a very simple process, last week's lineups, like last week's slate, would have hit the nuts. Just a very simple back test, 30% max, 5 uniques, 10% max, QB +1. Like I did that for last week on a back test. And if you guys who are subscribing to Domination Station are on there, if you guys who are DFS Army subscribers, you have the Domination Station, you could do the back test. I want you to go back to week 6 and just see if you can replicate it. 10% max on the quarterback, QB +1 stacks, 5 uniques, 30% max, running back, tight end, wide receiver. You should be able to hit what was a 204 and change, which was good enough to take down the tournament, the big DraftKings GPP last week. Like, holy shit, it was right there. Then we'll go, I'll do it. I haven't done it yet, but I'll do it on this one. And I'll say, all right, what would I have needed to do? But again, as we take a look at Megan's lineups, and I just like to look through all of these players that are well known. Let's take a look at Chipotle. Here we go. And Hofbrau is my boy as well. So we'll take a look at what he did. But let's take a look at Chipotle and what he does. I like to see what people are doing in terms of exposures. And if you take a look here at Chipotle Addict, also a very well-known player. Here's Bobby Wow. Oof, Bobby Wow, rough one. If you take a look at a well-known player, Chipotle Addict, he does go over the market on a couple of spots. And that led to some profits, right? Loaded up on Cooper Kupp, loaded up on Godwin. Renfrow was a good play, especially when Waller was out. I'm going to be curious to see what the rest of his exposures were, but the rest of these are pretty well spread out. So let's take a look at QB. He loaded up on Stafford, so he decided to load up on that game, and that led to good things happening. Let's take a look at wide receiver. Again, running back, Chuba Hubbard, 44%, Sanders, Darrell Williams. He had a lot of Swift because he loaded up on that one game, and that worked out. And he had a field exposure to Harris, so it was enough Swift and some Harris, which probably wound up in his best lineup here. Swift and Harris, yes, of course. That's how it goes. How do you determine how many uniques? It's the same process over and over and over again. I always use 4 to 5 uniques. If there's more games on the slate, you can use more uniques. So these slates are 10 game right now. When it's 13 games, 14 games, a few more games on the slate, you can go a little bit higher with the uniques. Also, if I want to, for me, what I'm doing is if I find a couple of plays, like this week I didn't have it, but my style of play, I do like to go very heavy exposure on a few spots. I like to have at least one spot with 60-70% exposure in my lineups on a player. At least one. In my perfect world, 2 of those. When I do that, I lower the number of uniques because I'm locking down a couple of positions. So it depends. This week, for myself, I didn't find any player, not one, that I was willing to go over 30%. And it bowed out. Listen, it worked out in my lineups that way. Like when you see mine, again, wasn't great. I didn't find any player that I was willing to load up on. You have to load up and be right. It's not just load up. It's got to load up and be right. So anyway, I didn't find that. Going right back to Megan, the Stallion here, a.k.a. Megan Joy. They definitely were willing to load up on some players. And Cooper Kupp, 86%. Godwin, again, 47%. Everybody else spread out. And that's really interesting as well. So mathematically, you don't need to load up on 6 or 7 players and be right. 2 or 3, and then spread your exposures out liberally. And that's how you could potentially get a million maker win. Listen, it's hard to take down a million. It's hard to take down a tournament. It's not something you're going to do every day. You're lucky if you do it once a year. A season of NFL, 17, 18, 19 weeks. If you did it once, you're amazing at this. If you did it twice, you're a fucking god, right? And that's really what it comes down to. Your entire NFL season comes down to a couple of lineups that take down big contests. The rest of it should be winning, losing, all of that. So understand the journey and the process is really, really important. Backtest and develop a system. So you can mass multi-enter simply by repeating a process. It could be QB +1, QB +1, QB, one pass catcher, one player from the opposing team, and you just do it all the time and repeat it. If you even go back and backtest now, those will give pretty good lineups. Every once in a while, I'll take one down. And then if you can add in one or two players where you're loading up on them, that's how you crush tournaments and be right. So in this case, congrats to Meg and Joy. They loaded up on 2 spots well over the field. Harris, a little bit of Swift, but mainly Cooper Kupp. Mainly the nuts quarterback, Matthew Stafford, went well over the field. And that's what it took to win $1 million. They worked it out. Anyway, for those of you who aren't signed up at DFS Army yet, I don't know what you're waiting for. Go get signed up. You can use my promo code GEEK. We've got NFL, NBA, everything going simultaneously. You can get access to the Domination Station Optimizer, all the tools, the chalkboard, everything we've got going to help you compete on a level playing field with some of the pros that you see on screen here. You can employ these techniques using our tools. And we've already shown that they take down tournaments. We've taken down tournaments almost every week this season. Crushing NBA right now like never before. It's been an incredible start. So go get signed up to DFS Army. Use my promo code GEEK. Sign up for VIP or Core 4, whatever you want to do. They cover all the different sports. It's 10% off. I will be back tomorrow with my Actually, we'll be back later tonight with the Showdown Breakdown. We got a game on, Saints, Seattle. And then tomorrow, first look lineups, Fanduel and Draftkings. So good luck, everyone. I will see you next time on the Weekend Review.